Welcome to Dave C, straight from the pit. Dave C here. Thought for today's show, we could talk about 1987 Psyche-out. Here's a look at his card art, as per the 3D Joe's book. And you can see here, it's got the 1986 to 1989 G.I. Joe font. As well as the digital explosion instead of the older 1982 to 85 explosion. And he appears on the Mobile Command Center box art, as shown here, manning a 50 cal. And he's also on another rendering of the MCC, as shown here in Mechanics Bay. And interestingly enough, he's sitting in a Battle Force 2000 vehicle called the Marauder, and he of course was not a member of the Battle Force 2000. But anyway, there he is there as a passenger on this vehicle. And on the cover of the spring 1987 G.I. Joe magazine, he's shown here on this poster, and here he is here in front of the Havoc. I recently bought him off my friend Ed, who lives in Burlington, a city nearby me, and this is actually his childhood figure and card back. So this was what he had back then in 1987. He told me that he got this at a mall near him called Burlington Mall, and there was a toy store in there, and it's not there anymore. But anyway, here's the card back there with all the 87 guys on it, and 86, and there is Psyche-out beside LT Falcon and Law and Order. Pretty good cutout job there, for sure. Pretty straight. And I thought we could look at the file card now, just so we could understand the character a little bit better, instead of showing the figure first. And it says codename Psyche-out, Deceptive Warfare. File name Kenneth D. Rich. Primary military specialty Psych Ops. Secondary military specialty Social Services Counselor. Birthplace San Francisco, California. Grade 02, First Lieutenant. The point at which you win a battle is when you've convinced the enemy that he is lost. This can be accomplished through something as simple as constant repetition. For example, you see a commercial on TV 10 times a day for a particular brand of cookies. One day at the supermarket, you're overcome by a sudden craving for cookies. Confronted by an array of unknown brands, you choose the one that you saw in the advertisement. They've won, and you've lost. So yeah, that kind of explains the character a little bit. He's definitely one of the most odd G.I. Joe ideas for a character. And back then, I wanted nothing to do with him, because he wasn't a military guy, and he was just kind of out there and odd. So I didn't get him, but my cousin Daniel did. That was one of his first figures. And I remember my Aunt Deb, she bought this guy for him because she liked it that he wasn't a military guy. And that also the fact that he didn't have military weapons. So, but I don't think she knew, and my cousin sometimes jokes about this, that he did actually come with a 45, but it was tucked away in the figure bubble, and you couldn't really see it. But anyway, yeah, so he was really young then, so she chose for him this character to have. But yeah, back to what I was saying, he wasn't one of my favorite guys for sure, and I didn't have him, and I was never interested in ever really getting him. But as an adult collector, I needed to fill out my 1987 set, and I went ahead and got him. And looking at him now, as an adult, I have a little bit more respect for him. And even his character. All I can think of for what was on the file card there was maybe it's kind of based on back when the old Germans, back in the 40s, they kind of used psychops with broadcasting bad messages to the Americans and Canadians and British, whoever they were fighting, really. But they would send these messages over speakers and different various ways on the battlefield and in the towns where they were fighting in. And they were pretty much saying that the war was already over. We've already won. The Germans have already won. Your countries are weak and we're supreme. So there's no use in fighting us. We have better weapons and better technology. And your government is fragile and your way of life is weak and ours is strong. And messages like that. So maybe that could be considered deceptive warfare. And then the other thing I thought of was back in the 80s we had this spy tech stuff, I remember, and it was gear that you could get, and you could hear conversations from far away using these funny contraptions. They were a kid's toy, and I remember watching those commercials, and yeah, I couldn't help but think of that when I was looking at this guy too, that maybe some of the stuff on here is based a little bit on that too. A little bit weird and wacky. And we can look at some of his wacky accessories now. These here are called 2 big ear sonic receivers. And this one here is called the variable wave field projector. And his backpack is called the ELF sonic generator. Kind of interesting. And a 45. So, thank God he came with a 45. Or some kind of weapon. He's got bright blonde hair. Almost like bleach blonde. It's so blonde. Electronic headphone system with antenna that wraps all the way around the back of his head. Interesting face sculpt. A bright green vest with some kind of interesting technology on the front. A holster for his 45 on his chest. There are those weird sound things on his arms. I forget what they're called already. But that's them. And they kind of hook on there. You can see these little clasps. And they go on there. He's got black gloves, a black belt, gray undersleeves, gray pants, black combat boots, a pouch on the left leg, and a knife on the right. Interesting insignia on his arm. Straps on the back with the green. Here he is in Bellamo's book. It says Psyche-out, Deceptive Warfare. And it does mention here that G.I. Joe seemed to be dropping military type stuff in favor of more science fiction based stuff. And this was sort of one of the first figures that did that. I mean, we still had a lot of guys like, Tunnel Rat, LT Falcon that year that were military looking. And later on with Hit and Run and Shockwave and guys like that. But yeah, you could sort of tell that they were looking towards going a little bit more sci-fi for sure. So I can agree with that comment. He didn't appear on the Sunbow animated series because he was released in 87. So his only shot at that would have been to be in the 1987 movie. But he didn't make the cut for that. For whatever reason, they chose to create other figures like Big Lob. And also only had figures like Chuckles, Tunnel Rat, Jinx, etc. in the movie. And didn't have guys like Outback, Psyche-out, Crazy Legs, guys like that. So, yeah, he didn't get to be in any kind of cartoon form. But his first appearance in the Marvel run is G.I. Joe Special Missions number 7 from 1987. And here it is here. It's called Switcheroo. I always look at this issue like it's the Chuckles issue, because he shows off his talents in this as an undercover guy. And there is Chuckles there. I really like this issue. But yeah, anyway, down here you can see that Psyche-out makes his first appearance in the Marvel book, and there he is there. And then in number 64, he's involved. There he is beside Chuckles. Yeah, he's not really a prominent character in the Marvel run. Kind of a sidecast guy. But I thought he was in an earlier Special Missions where he's wearing a white t-shirt and it said Psyche-out on it, because all the Joe recruits had to wear these t-shirts with their name on it, and he was one of them. Maybe I'm mistaken, but as I researched this, it kind of told me that Special Missions 7 was his first appearance, but now I'm wondering if it's in a book for this. But you guys can look for yourself if you're interested. It might have been in a book before 7, Special Mission 7, but regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and looking forward to doing many, many more 1980s G.I. Joe reviews in the future. Yo, Joe.